and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are. Whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Friday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. I really couldn't decide what time to come on here because this feels like it's kind of early for a Friday evening because I know a lot of people are gone on Friday night spending time with friends and family, but also I feel like by the time SmackDown goes off, it'll be 11 o'clock Eastern time for all of you wrestling fans out there. And by the time the NBA Finals game goes off, it's probably going to be about 11:10 or 11:15 Eastern time. And I think that'll be a little bit too late. So I thought, you know what? It's either go on before they start or go on after they end. So that's why I've decided on this time. But tonight I'm going to talk about something I have not talked about in a long time as far as a topic, and that is Fed Up Friday. Good evening, Kevron, and happy Friday the 13th to you as well. Thanks for stopping by. I've did a couple of these Fed Up Fridays in the past, and it feels like it's been probably a year since the last one, maybe longer, I'm just guessing. And every time I've done one, I've said that, it's not going to be a weekly thing. It'll just be on occasion when something bothers me. That way, when I talk about a Fed Up Friday, I'm not just talking about one certain thing. I can have one thing that bothers me to go along with a few other things that bother me and just do it all in one. So this Fed Up Friday has quite a few topics. If you are watching live and something bothers you in the world of sports, please feel free to let me know. It doesn't have to be about sports, but I prefer it to be about sports. But as long as it's not about politics, I'm okay with anything, but I prefer the world of sports. The first one is Stephen A. Smith. Now, everybody knows that I don't watch ESPN outside of ball games. I'll watch a college football game or college basketball game or, an NBA game. But as far as that, I don't watch any of their shows. Back in the day before ESPN got stupid, I used to watch Sports Center and PTI and Baseball Tonight, NFL Tonight. Back in the day, they had RPM Tonight in the world of racing. I don't watch any of that anymore. If there's not a ball game on, I'm not watching it. But I'm always hearing things that Stephen A. Smith has said because I listen to so many different sports talk shows, and anytime I'm listening to them and Stephen A. Smith says something stupid, they'll play a little clip of it. And I heard another one, I believe it was yesterday, and I don't even remember now what it was about, but it was Stephen A. Smith again threatening somebody, and it seems like every other week he's threatening somebody. I ain't never seen anybody that's threatening somebody all the time, trying to be all big and bad, but yet never does a thing. And he's also now signed on to do, hey there, Austin, glad to have you here, signed on to do a daily show for Sirius XM. Now, I have Sirius XM, but 95% of the time, if I'm listening to it, it's either NASCAR talk, Major League Baseball talk, or wrestling talk. But if I listened to the channel that Stephen A. Smith is going to be on, I wouldn't listen during his show. I'm fantastic, Austin. Hope you are as well. So I have that channel because I have the SiriusXM app on my phone, but there's no way you could pay me to listen to the 2 or 3 hours he's going to be on every day. The man only knows one thing, and that's basketball. Why anybody has let him start talking baseball and football and politics, I'll never know. he's a basketball man. You can tell that the man knows nothing about college football because every time he discusses college football, he'll just say, Alabama. Can't tell you one thing about him. He just says Alabama because he knows most of the time they're good. Why anybody puts any stock in anything he says, I'll never know. I've never liked Paul Feinbaum, despised Paul Feinbaum, but I think I would rather listen to Paul Feinbaum than I would hear another word that Stephen A. Smith ever has to say. Yes, Austin, I've got a show tomorrow night, so I never want to hear or see Stephen A. Smith again. And the next one is, speaking of wrestling fans in general, and it may not be most wrestling fans, it's just the ones that I know about, whether it's from, these social media websites about wrestling or the wrestling podcast I listen to. And yes, Austin, it's SWA, but it seems like wrestling fans are never happy. I started watching wrestling when I was 6 years old, so I've been watching it now for almost 35 years. But I've also gone back and watched wrestling from the 70s and 80s, either before I was born or when I was real, real little. And back in the day, wrestling was about storytelling. You're supposed to have things that grab you. You're supposed to have things that give you feeling and make you feel things. And now you've got wrestling fans that if they feel like there's not enough story, they complain because there's no story. But then when the story goes too long, they complain the story's gone too long. And it just seems like you cannot make them happy at all. And, Ron Killing spent the better part of 20 years, being an idiot, and he was good at it. He was fantastic at it. But now that he's serious, you mark my words, within 6 months, they'll be complaining that he's being too serious. Why? Because wrestling fans never forget. And they're not going to forget that he spent 20 years being a goofball. And to give you a quick example, back in the day, there was a wrestler named Albert. He also used the name A-Train, but he was Albert. And of course, A-Train was short for Albert. He was gone out of the WWE for 15 years probably, I'm guessing, as far as being an on-screen character. Wrestled over in Japan for a while, came back with a whole new character. And his new character wore a shield, had a manager and everything, and his name was Lord Tensai. But even though he was gone for a while and came back, the longtime wrestling fans remembered seeing him on Raw and SmackDown back in the day as Albert or A-Train. So, they showed vignettes, built him up for the longest time, and his first night back on Raw, they announced him as Lord Tensai. He comes out on Raw, gets in the ring, takes his little shield mask off, the match starts, and within 5 seconds, you could hear everybody in the crowd chanting, Albert, Albert, Albert. So they pretty much killed this character immediately because they're going back and remembering what he was 15 years earlier. So if wrestling fans are going to go back and dig up a 15-year-old character that Lord Tensai had back in the day as Albert, do you really think they're going to forget about Ron Truth spending 20 years as R-Truth? No, they're not. So I feel bad for Ron Killings because this is not going to work, but it's nothing he's done. It's just fans don't forget. They don't know how to move on. They've got to find something wrong. And then you'll have some that if Ron Killings doesn't win a world championship now, they'll complain because he's not winning it. But if he does win it, they'll complain because he did win it. And, Jey Uso is the worst champion they've had since Jinder Mahal. I was so glad when Jey Uso lost the world championship, but I also know that there's a reason for it. He may get it back one day. I don't know, but it's wrestling. It's storytelling. You're supposed to watch it, get hooked, and want to watch it every week. That's the purpose of it. But you'd be surprised at how many fans got mad because Jey Uso lost the belt. Yeah, he lost the belt. He's not going to keep it forever. Just because you like him doesn't mean he's going to be the champion for 20 years. He has to lose the belt. And yes, Austin Goldberg has been supposed to return for a while now. He was supposed to come back a couple of months ago, but he said he injured something, and that's been the holdup. But he's returning now. He claims again that this is his last go around and he's done. But Goldberg couldn't wrestle back in his prime, so he sure can't wrestle now. So why he wants to keep coming back for one more run when his run 25 years ago sucked, I'll never know. But I have never been a fan of Goldberg, never have, and I'm still not. I don't like the look. I don't like the music. I don't like the wrestling. Nothing he does catches my attention. So hopefully, for my sake and my sanity, whenever he does come back, this will be his last run. But I have most certainly heard about that. When I first heard about it about 3 months ago, I thought, oh no, not again. Not Goldberg again. But unfortunately, I think he's coming back again. And also, another thing I'm fed up with is football big shots being lazy. And even though I don't watch any of the national television networks, whether it's ESPN, CBS, Fox Sports 1, any of them as far as their TV shows, I hear different interviews with them from listening to sports talk. And you listen to local, sports talk radio in any market. It can be Orlando, it can be Knoxville, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Dallas. It doesn't matter. At some point or another, they're going to interview somebody that works for ESPN, CBS, Fox Sports, one of them. He'll be on Raw sometimes, Austin, but I don't think it's going to be every week. He'll be on there on occasion. And every time I hear an interview with one of them, if they're talking football, they all come across to me as being lazy. And what I mean by that is anytime they're breaking down somebody, no matter who it is, it seems like they've gotten lazy as far as actually breaking them down. Anytime they're talking about a team's wide receiver room, they'll always say, oh, they're frisbee catching dogs. Or anytime they're, describing a player that, might play both sides of the ball or can be a wide receiver and a running back or, can be a wide receiver and a kick return man, they'll say, he's a Swiss Army knife. And to me, those are just lazy, simplistic things that you say when you don't really want to break somebody down. Don't tell me that a wide receiver is a frisbee catching dog. That's lazy. Tell me why he's so good. Who does he remind you of? Tell me that. Don't be so lazy. Don't tell me somebody's a Swiss Army knife. Explain to me why you think he's that. Explain to me who his game reminds you of. Break down what he might do in his next game. Don't just use those lazy, simplistic phrases that you use instead of actually breaking down a player. To me, it's just lazy. It's you haven't watched the film that you should watch. So instead of actually talking about somebody and sounding dumb because you really can't say much about him because you ain't watched film, you just say, oh, he's a Swiss Army knife. Well, you can say that about almost everybody in high school football and half the players in college football. Break it down for me. That's lazy. And the last thing is, I'm tired of the poor Indiana Pacers not getting any respect. And I guess I personally, myself, kind of sort of fall into this category because I picked the Thunder to win it all. But I'm not necessarily a basketball or, more importantly, an NBA insider. I just give opinions on, what I know, and I don't know near what the experts think. But, I'm constantly hearing interviews with all these NBA insiders, and almost everyone that I've heard before the final started, after game one, after game two, and after game three, everybody is still picking the Thunder. But the Pacers played the Cavaliers, and everybody thought the Cavs were better. The Pacers won. They played the Knicks. Everybody thought the Knicks were better. The Pacers won. And now here they are playing the Thunder, up 2-1, and every serious NBA insider I've heard is still picking the Thunder to win the whole thing. It's like, what have the Pacers done to where they're getting no respect? I know they're not, leading a lot. In game one, they led 0.3 of a second the whole game, but it was at the very end. In games 3, they were outplayed in quarters 1 and 3, but they outplayed the Thunder in quarters 2 and 4. And the fourth quarter is the most important one. And I know this day and time, basketball is all about superstars, and the Pacers don't have one. Now, Tyrese Halliburton could be a superstar because this day and time, the game of basketball has very few legit point guards. And back in the day when basketball was basketball, a point guard's job was to be the facilitator, to be the passer, to get the offense going. And that's why back in the day you had all these point guards that only scored 11, 12 points a game because they weren't supposed to score. They're supposed to help their teammates score. But this day and time, there are very few actual legitimate point guards, and Halliburton is one. So Halliburton doesn't go out there and score 35 points a night. He probably could, but he does what a point guard is supposed to do, and that is he makes his teammates better. So Halliburton could be a superstar if he chose to be, but outside of him, they just got a bunch of role players. But it doesn't matter. They win, and what they're doing works for them. And Rick Carlisle may be the best coach in basketball today, but it just seems like the Pacers continue to win, and all the NBA experts continue to doubt them. And I don't understand it at all. Any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Anything in the sports world that you're fed up with, I'd love to hear about it down below in the comment section. But let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. What happens when a telescope crashes into a microscope? They kaleidoscope. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.